his longtime partner, Novo Nordisk, and it looks like there's a good chance he could be in the number 4 car for 2020 for A.J. Foyt, pairing with Tony Kanaan, the elder statesman of the IndyCar series at this point. As for other entries of note, still question marks as to what Dale Coyne Racing is going to do. It still looks like that Sergio Sette Camara is going to be the second driver alongside Cincino Ferrucci. And if that is indeed the case, James Hinchcliffe still looking for a full-time ride for 2020. As we know, Sebastian Bourdais is headed to IMSA, and it looks like Spencer Pigot also is headed to the Sports Car Series for 2020. As for IMSA news, Corvette Racing has now a third driver for their primary entry. Rumors persist that Nicky Katzberg, the Dutchman who last drove for BMW in the endurance events last year, will be called up to replace Mike Rockenfeller for the 2020 season. Rockenfeller has spent the last 2 years with Corvette, but is unavailable this year as he tries his luck in the German DTM Championship. So Nicky Katzberg goes to Corvette, joining forces with Jordan Taylor and Antonio Garcia in the number 3 entry. That's a look at the updated racing news at this point. I'm Matt Embury for The Balance on blogtalkradio.com.
Thank you very much, Matthew. Always good to catch up. Funny season. And you know what? They call it the funny season for a reason. Here we got Connor Daly has a full-time ride, and James Hinchcliffe does it. Nothing against Connor Daly, local boy, and by all accounts, it's earned his ride. And certainly that's a good fit, a good marriage, if you will. Everybody knows Connor Daly's a better road course driver than he is an oval driver. Did very well here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. So at the Grand Prix, and we got the Grand Prix. Is it too early to start talking about the month of May? I tell you what, we're just about 8 weeks away, till we go racing in St. Petersburg with IndyCar, and Daytona 500 is just around the corner as well. So hey, enjoy the off season as you can as we get ready. But Connor Daly gets a full-time ride there with Ed Carpenter Racing taking over his road course series. Certainly some news there with around IndyCar. Appreciate Matthew keeping us up to speed in the off season, and as we get closer to the regular season of IndyCar, he'll be back on with this with a regular basis. Well, guys, last Sunday was Bowl Selection Sunday. I play the homer card. I'm just not going to, if Clay Travis, love him to death, but he's an SEC guy. He's a University of Tennessee guy. Our social media director, Melissa, also is a Tennessee person. But hey, I'm going to stand strong. Gator Bowl, IU, Tennessee. Let's see what happens with that. So let's take a quick glance coming up here in about 10 minutes or so. We've got Matt Hicks is going to be joining us, and we're going to be talking about the Indianapolis Colts and what a disappointing loss last week and the week before and the week before. So it's kind of got them in a predicament, if you will, and we've got a lot of people on the injury list, so we'll see what happens. I don't know, not for sure. It would be great if he can, but not for sure if T.Y. Hilton is going to be able to join us on Monday night against the Saints. And, of course, we've got the Panthers coming up, and then we're going to finish the season off, and we have got two absolutely must-win out. Well, let's talk a little bit about the college football bowl games. Obviously, the national championship game down in New Orleans. That's the Mercedes-Benz Superdome, and that will be on January 20th. We don't know if it's going to be who that's going to be yet, but we could tell you it's going to be one of four teams. We could tell you it's either going to be LSU or Oklahoma, or it's going to be Ohio State, Clemson. It's going to be between. Okay, so let's break this down. Number 1 LSU against number 4 Oklahoma. Saturday, December 28th, down in Atlanta, and then in Arizona, out in Arizona, Ohio State versus Clemson. The winner of those two will be in the national championship game, and we'll see what happens. I hope the Big Ten gets represented. I mean, in Adam Jividen, super Buckeye fan, super Browns fan, super everything Ohio's fan, had to play daddy duty today, so he could not join us. But he will be joining us as we get closer to the playoffs as well. Well, let's talk a little bit about what's going on with some of these other bowl games. As you know, so we got and this is one thing that we always like to joke about or have laughs about is the names of these bowl games. And so we're just going to have fun with the game. They still haven't had the Cereal Bowl yet and the Toilet Bowl. I mean, I think Cheerios should step up and say, the Cheerios Cereal Bowl. And one of the bowl, what's a Tidy Bowl? Tidy Bowl game. The Tidy Bowl game should be exclusively reserved for teams that aren't bowl eligible. But hey, let's get them to a bowl. Their season went into the crapper. The Tidy Bowl game should be exclusively for two teams, two of the worst teams. Who would watch that? You know what? I think that we could get some people. I think you'd be surprised. Marketing is a crazy beast. If you did some crazy marketing, you could do that. But makers wanted Bahamas Bowl out in Nassau, Bahamas. If you got to go to a bowl game, come on. It's Buffalo versus Charlotte out in Nassau on December 20th. Also on the 20th, the Tropical Smoothie Cafe Frisco Bowl. Utah State versus Kent State. December 21st is Alcorn State versus North Carolina, AT&T at the Mercedes-Benz Stadium down in Atlanta. New Mexico Bowl, Central Michigan versus San Diego State down at Dreamstyle Stadium in Albuquerque, New Mexico. FBC Mortgage Cure. We're just going to kind of go through these just in case you haven't heard who they are. We're just going to kind of go through these as they will. We'll break them down in more detail as we get closer to the games and as the games are happening. And certainly follow us on social media on @TBalance. We'll have a lot of the information about the games as they're going on there. FBC Mortgage Cure Bowl, Liberty versus Georgia Southern down in Orlando. That's a 2:30 game. And then I'm not even going to try to say this, but it's something Boca Raton Bowl, the Charabida. See, I speak Hillbilly, but I don't speak Cajun, I guess. I don't know what that is. CHERIBUNDI. So Boca Raton Bowl. I don't know why I say Cajun, because that's certainly in Boca Raton and not Louisiana. I move on. I digress. I'm like Homer going back into the Jeff, going back into the bushes there. Cremella Bowl, Florida International versus Arkansas State down in Montgomery, Alabama. Mitsubishi Motors Las Vegas Bowl, Boise State versus Washington. R&L Carriers New Orleans Bowl. Appalachian State versus UAB down at the Mercedes-Benz Superdome. Man, they are hosting a ton of college football games, aren't they? They're getting their name out there. Talking about marketing, the Mercedes-Benz Superdome is going to be talked about a lot. Coming up on December 23rd, the Bad Boy Mowers, Gasparilla Bowl. Woo! Take a breath on these bowl games. UCF versus Marshall. Christmas Eve, the SoFi Hawaii Bowl. Hawaii versus BYU at the Aloha Stadium in Honolulu. Home game for them. December 26th, a Walk-Ons Independence Bowl, Louisiana Tech versus Miami down in Shreveport, Louisiana. Quick Lane Bowl. Pittsburgh versus Eastern Michigan, Fort Field, Detroit. Man, and we talked about this last week with Kent Sterling, that if that was the bowl game that they decided to send IU to, that would have been a punishment, and that would have been bad news. I think, and Kent said this as well, I'm just going to be totally done with it all. I'm going to wipe my hands of it if IU gets sent to Detroit. So that's the bowl game in Detroit, the Quick Lane Bowl game. It's Pittsburgh versus Eastern Michigan. Certainly one would think a very good home game or attendance travel game, if you will, for Eastern Michigan. But congratulations to both of those teams going. But I am so glad that IU is not headed north to the Military Bowl on December 27th. Military Bowl. We're talking about the military today quite extensively. Military Bowl presented by Northrop Grumman, North Carolina versus Temple. Navy Marine Corps Memorial Stadium in Annapolis, Maryland. New Era Pinstripe Bowl. This is another bowl game that we have thought that maybe IU would end up at at the Bronx at Yankee Stadium. Michigan State versus Wake Forest there. Academy Sports plus Outdoors Texas Bowl, Oklahoma State versus Texas A&M, NRG Stadium in Houston. San Diego County Credit Union, which, by the way, in my other world, they're a client of mine. That's a whole other thing. USC versus Iowa at the SDCCU Stadium in San Diego. The Cheez-It Bowl. Gotta love the Cheez-It Bowl. Air Force, Rick Riggins Air Force Falcons against Washington State Chase Field there in Phoenix. That's a late kickoff on the 27th. Over to the 28th, Notre Dame. Oh, man, we could talk a lot about what happened with Notre Dame this year, how they ended up here. A lot of, Rick included, and other people think that maybe Notre Dame kind of got shafted here against Iowa State, Camping World Stadium down in Florida. Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic, Penn State versus Memphis. Again, Penn State may have got the shaft there. We don't know as well. And then college football playoff semifinals, we talked about them. And then over on the 30th, First Responder Bowl, Western Kentucky versus Western Michigan. Franklin American Mortgage Music City Bowl in Nashville, Mississippi State versus Louisville. Redbox Bowl. Again, this was the one that we also talked about with Tony Donahue from the Tony D podcast. He's headed to the airport this morning, was unable to join us. California versus Illinois. The Capital One Orange Bowl. Florida versus Virginia, Hard Rock Stadium, Miami Gardens. And then New Year's Eve, the Belk Bowl, Virginia Tech versus Kentucky. And that's down in Charlotte. And Tony the Tiger Sun Bowl. Florida State versus Arizona State. AutoZone Liberty Bowl, Navy, which we're going to be talking more detail today. Army, Navy, go Army. Versus Navy versus Kansas State, Liberty Bowl, Memorial Stadium. Nova Home Loans, Arizona Bowl, Wyoming versus Georgia State. Then you've got the Big Six with the New Year's Day Bowl, and I use at the Gator Bowl. So hey, that gives you an update. We could go through all those, but we don't have a lot of time to do that. My name's Tom Marcos, El Presidente. It is Army-Navy game. It is the salute to our academies today. We're going to be talking in more details. So right around the corner is Matthew Embury. I'm sorry. Wrong Matthew. Matthew Hicks on the other side. Going to be joining us talking some Homer card about the Indianapolis Colts, the IU Hoosiers. A big win last night on the hard court against Nebraska. Of course, again, they're headed to the Gator Bowl, so we're going to be talking about that here in just a moment. 917-889-8516. We'll be right back right here on the Balance Radio Network.